January 29th, 2025 was a historic day for India's space program. It was not just the first launch by the Indian Space Research Organization for 2025, but it was also the 100th launch that the space agency undertook from its Sriharikota spaceport in Andhra Pradesh. The 100th launch on board the geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle with the GSLV F-15 mission, also called NVS-02, carried the second set of satellites for India's very own navigation satellite, NAVIC. While this was a major celebratory feat for the entire country, this journey has not been easy. Hi, my name is Soumya Pillai, and with this episode, we are relaunching one of Print's show, Pure Science. For years, you have all shown tremendous love and support for this show, and I'm hoping that you will continue to do so going forward. You can leave your feedback and any suggestions in the comments below or email me at soumya.pillai@theprint.in. Now getting back to ISRO's journey, ISRO's Satish Dhawan Space Center, which was called Sriharikota Space Range till 2002 and later renamed to honor the former ISRO chairperson Satish Dhawan, is the hub for India's space activities. The spaceport has launched some of the most landmark missions, including India's moon missions, Chandrayaan 1, 2, and 3, the first mission to study the Sun, Aditya L1, and India's first interplanetary mission to study Earth's neighbor, Mars, called the Mars Orbiter Mission or MOM. But this was not India's first launch pad, and it actually took a lot of scientific considerations before the location at Sriharikota was decided. India's first spaceport was the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala. And India's first rocket launch was also from here on November 21st, 1963. This was the launch of a sounding rocket, which is a small, low-cost rocket that carries scientific experiments into suborbital space. It was in 1979, August 10th to be precise, that the first orbital launch was made from Sriharikota. And this is where the count for the 100 launches began. It was an experimental flight of the Satellite Launch Vehicle 3 or SLV-3, carrying a Rohini technology payload. But while the launch itself was successful, the mission failed to insert the payload into the correct orbit and was deemed unsuccessful. But in true ISRO fashion, the agency got up, dusted off, and returned to work. And the very next year, on July 18, 1980, successfully launched the SLV-3E2 mission. This mission was overseen by former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who was with the ISRO back then. Now let's get into why Sriharikota was chosen as ISRO's launching destination. It was not a random selection, and a lot of scientific consideration went into deciding this spot. The most important consideration was the location itself. The ideal location for the spaceport was in southern India, particularly on the eastern coast, which has greater proximity to the equator than any other part of the country. Now, to understand this concept, imagine a discus thrower. Before they make a shot, they tend to pivot and circle around to gain velocity. This makes the process of throwing itself easier, and the disc also tends to fly further. Using the same principle, because of the Earth's rotation, the linear velocity of objects is greater at the equator than anywhere else. This means that launching a satellite eastward from a location closest to the equator would give a launch vehicle a certain push. Since most satellites orbit around the equator, launching from a spot near the equator also saves expensive fuel, making space missions relatively affordable. Sriharikota also became the chosen spot because after some ground tests, it was confirmed that the land there was stable enough to handle the high vibrations that are caused during rocket launches. The climate was also dry for most part of the year, which was necessary for ensuring that weather interruptions did not impact launches and other ground tests. Since India's first launch, the country's space program has come a long way. According to government data, in the last decade, ISRO has launched 457 satellites, and the rate of launch missions has been a solid 5.2 launches per year. If you're wondering how the number of satellite launches is higher than the total number of launches undertaken, that is because most launch vehicles carry multiple payloads. These satellites range from performing the tasks of communication, disaster management, navigation, Earth observation, planetary observations, and climate and environmental services. These missions have cemented India's position as a global competitor. Countries like the US, UK, and China, known to have Tier 1 space programs, are now taking notice of India and partnering with Indian Space Agency for missions and data sharing. Some of the most significant missions that ISRO has undertaken over the last few years is the Chandrayaan series, which started in 2008 and culminated with India becoming the first country in the world to land near the lunar South Pole. Aditya L1, India's first observatory to study the sun in 2023, and the 2017 Cartosat-2 series. The last mission that I quoted, the Cartosat-2, which was on board India's trusted workhorse, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, created the world record for launching the most number of satellites in a single flight. It was only in 2021 that a private space agency owned by Elon Musk called SpaceX, which broke ISRO's record and launched 143 satellites on board its Falcon 9 rocket. Not just their own, India has also established its identity as a trusted global partner for launches. Since 2014, the Indian Space Agency has launched 398 foreign satellites. It has also gone on to increase its prowess in launch capabilities. Apart from a trusted list of rockets from PSLV, which we spoke about, which has maintained an appreciable success rate of around 97%, the GSLV series, the LVM Mark III, and the SSLV, India is now moving towards developing heavier rockets in the form of the next generation and reusable launch vehicles. The NGLV will have the capacity of carrying up to 30,000 kgs to low Earth orbit. In stature too, it will be significantly bigger than the current launchers. Compared to a 43-meter tall LVM-3, the NGLV will be 91 meters. It is also being planned as a reusable first-stage rocket, which can be utilized around 10 to 15 times, making launches effective and affordable. With India's increased space ambitions, ISRO has also upgraded its LVM-3 rocket to be human-rated. In India's first human space flight, Gaganyaan, which is likely to take flight by 2026, this launcher will be used. It is designed to take a crew of 2 to 3 astronauts to a 300 to 400 kilometer orbit in space. On ground, advancements are also happening to improve infrastructure. Just about a fortnight ago, the government announced the development of a third launch pad in Sriharikota, which will be designed to have a configuration that is not only universal and adaptable to support NGLV, but also Launch Vehicle Mark III for semi-cryogenic stages as well as scaled-up configurations. A semi-cryogenic stage is a stage of a rocket that uses a semi-cryogenic engine or SCE. The SCE uses liquid oxygen as an oxidizer and refined kerosene as fuel. The launch pad is being planned in partnership with private players, and it will use ISRO's experience in setting up launch pad facilities, and the infrastructure will be shared between government and private entities. This will be an essential step because of the entry and expansion of private space players in the sector over the last few years. The launch pad will be equipped with facilities such as a jet deflector, which is like a blast fence or a safety device that redirects high energy exhaust from a jet engine to prevent damage and injury. A launch tower, which is a structure that supports a spacecraft or rocket during its launch, and lightning suppression system, which are a combination of systems like towers, wires, and grounding points that divert lightning away from the launch pad and rocket. It will also have propellant storage and servicing facilities, with range systems and checkout interfaces, instrumentation and control and electronics support facilities. This will be located with the second launch pad in Sriharikota to maximally utilize the existing infrastructure in the spaceport. ISRO has also claimed that while it took nearly 50 years to complete 100 launches, the next 100 launches will come much sooner. And the rate at which India is progressing, that goal doesn't seem to be too far off. Thank you for tuning in. For more such deep dives into weekly science-related advancements from around the world, keep watching The Print Pure Science.